It's time once again for the Passion to Succeed podcast, where we explore the traits, mindsets, and attitudes of passionate and successful individuals. This show is for anyone who wants to make a difference, make more money, learn from the greatest minds, and discover how to be more successful in all you do and doing it with a pure passion to succeed. Here's your host, serial entrepreneur, successful author, and the world's most passionate master coach, Craig White.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Passion to Succeed podcast show, a show really dedicated to empower you to create clarity and certainty in all you do and your really, passionate outcome. As always, we have a show that, quite honestly, I'm really excited, and we have a show today that I believe is going to empower you to raise your game and raise your beliefs in the opportunities that lie within you and around you and most certainly before you. It's a real pleasure of mine to introduce a mentor of mine, someone that I've stumbled across a few years ago and studied. Yet, if I'm honest, looking forward to attend a live event with this exceptional guy, a guy that has been in the personal development and influence trade, I guess, for over 40 years and writing 40 self-development books in, I believe, over 29 languages. So it's a real pleasure to welcome the man himself, Dr. Joh Demartini. John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
I believe, obviously, you're in the UK today, which is great. We're on the same time zone.
Yes, I'm in London right here, and I. It's lovely. I've been here for about a week now doing programs and consulting and media, so it's been great.
Well, John, this is an absolute pleasure of mine personally to be able to connect with you and selfishly, I guess, indulge and being able to really contribute to the wider audience. And we have a real varied listener base across the world, predominantly here in the UK, although we have many people streaming through iTunes, SoundCloud and Stitcher worldwide. And we have really people from, maybe the entrepreneurial background, people that are maybe just starting off in personal development or in business, and even through to athletes. Recently we had a guy that messaged me. He's stumbled across our podcast show and finding it really inspiring as he's training for his first marathon. So we really do have a varied listener base, which is great. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was, you've been in the contribution industry and really making a difference to people around the globe for 44 years now. How did you start out in personal development?
Well, I was a high school dropout. I ended up, I was told when I was a kid I was never going to be able to read or write or communicate, never amount to anything, never go very far in life in first grade. And I made it through elementary school with the help of the smartest kids by asking questions. But when I went to the next level of education and my parents moved to a small town, I didn't have any smart kids. We were in a low socioeconomic area. And I just couldn't do it. I just failed. And I dropped out of school. I left home really at 13. And then I left Texas and lived on the streets and was kind of a vagabond surfer kid from 14 to 18. And I made my way to California hitchhiking, and then I flew to Hawaii after panhandling some money for a flight. And then I lived in the beaches of Hawaii. And I ended up nearly dying of strychnine poisoning.
Oh, wow.
And I was a lady found me in my tent, luckily, and that led me to a little health food store to try to get my body back in shape. And that led me to a talk where a gentleman named Paul Bragg spoke. And one night in 1 hour, this one man with his one message literally was speaking to me and woke me up. And that night I believed that maybe I could overcome my learning problems. Maybe I could learn how to be intelligent and I could learn to read. And I had a desire to want to travel the world and teach. And I saw a vision of doing that. And that's 45 years ago. And all I've wanted to do since then is what I'm doing. I just wanted to research, write, travel, teach. And so I just started on that journey. And I started reading and started sharing. And, I had my first student. One of my second student I ever had is still a student. Wow. Almost 45 years. So I just never gave up on the dream. And if you never give up on something, sooner or later everybody else dies out. You end up there. You just got to stay with it.
Wow, I mean, you're obviously a really busy guy. I mean, I read somewhere that you travel 360 days of the year sometimes to countries all over the globe, which is quite amazing. Do you still have a passion for the ocean, for surfing? Does that still have a part in your life?
Well, yes. I'm on 65th birthday, which is coming up. I'm planning on surfing. I'm gonna get some of the big wave riders that are known, and we're going to go out and do some big waves. So, yeah, I'll still do that. I live on a ship called the World, which is a condominium ship that allows me to go around the world and be on the ocean. And so when I'm not traveling speaking, I'm traveling in my ship and going country to country to speak. So I never lost that love, but I don't surf as much by any means as I did when I was young. But now I'm surfing the cosmic waves by researching and teaching. So,
yeah, I understand the passion. I mean, the reason I ask is prior to my own personal development journey, John, and becoming an entrepreneur, I was chasing my dream and surfing the world, and it's still something that I love to do, although avoid dedicating much time to it with my passions where they lie at the moment. So something that really fascinates me. I mean, a lot of you discuss through your studies over the years and your contribution. I mean, you're a renowned behaviour specialist. Obviously a researcher, global educator. But a lot of people, there's that. Sometimes people can almost look. Well, I wasn't born that way. I wasn't necessarily born with the genius inside me that I know is something you really look to get people to see. What would you say to these people that may think that it's not something that you can learn, it's something that you're either born with or born without?
Well, when somebody comes up to me and say, oh, you're gifted, I go, okay, if you say so. I remember when I turned 18 and I attempted to come back from Hawaii to California and back to Texas to see my parents. My parents encouraged me to take a GED, which is a high school equivalency test. And somehow, by guessing, I passed.
Wow.
And I really couldn't read half of what was on the paper, but the test. But I guessed, and I did another test to get into college, and I guessed, and I passed. And then I took my first college exam from a real class, and I needed a 72 to pass, but I got a 27. I just bombed it. And I really almost gave up on everything at that moment. And I literally was crying. I just said, well, I guess I don't have what it takes. I guess I'll never learn to read. I was really distraught by it. And my mom came home and saw me crying, and she said, what happened? And I said, I've just bombed it. I guess I don't know how to read. I guess I won't be able to ever do it. And she didn't know what to say, so she finally just put her hand on my shoulder and she said, son, whether you become a great, teacher, healer, and philosopher and travel the world like you dream, whether you return to Hawaii and ride giant waves like you've done, or you return to the streets and panhandle as a bum, I just want to let you know your father and I are going to love you no matter what. And that was a really amazing moment when she said that. My hand went into a fist, and I looked up and I saw the vision of speaking in front of a large audience just came into my mind. And I made a determination. I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called reading and learning and studying, and I'm going to teaching and speaking, and I'm going to overcome my learning problems, and I'm going to travel the world and step foot in every country on the face of the earth. And I'm not going to let any human being stop me, not even myself. I got up, I hugged my mom, I walked into the little room where I was sleeping, and I got a little dictionary out, and I started memorizing the dictionary. With the help of my mom, I memorized 30 words a day, proper spelling, pronunciation, usage in a sentence, and I had to do that. And I had to grow my vocabulary 30 words a day until I had 10,000 words in my head, pretty well clearly. And I didn't stop. And then I started passing school, and I started, excelling. And then I wanted to read, and I just started reading about 20 hours a day. I mean, I was reading on the way to school. I was reading on the way back. I was reading during school. I was reading at night. I slept 4 hours a day, and all I wanted to do is read and learn the laws of the universe. And so it wasn't a gift. It was an enormous desire to do something. When you have a big enough why, the hows take care of themselves. I just had a very strong desire to overcome my learning problems and learn how to read and learn how to speak and overcome my speech problem, because I had to go to a speech pathologist as a little child, and I never thought I could ever speak clearly. So it was a very inspiring moment to find out that I could overcome that. And it was not an immediate thing. It was a slow, steady thing. If you listen to some of the audio recordings of even 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you can see that there's definitely a progress in my ability to articulate. So it's not a gift. It's just sheer long-term hours, thousands. When Gladwell says 10,000 hours, I think it's more like, for me, it's more like 250,000 hours easily.
Hey, that's amazing, and it's really great that you had that vision in that moment, and I guess it's, you know, moments like this are what can be really the cause of change and tangible change for us as individuals. How do people, John, that may have not experienced that moment yet, to discover their deeper motivation? And, you know, people talk about, you know, you mentioned about when the why is there, the how to is easy, but so many people skip across the why and avoid spending time with developing that deeper motivation and connecting to their truths. What's your take on, you know, discovering the missing reasons? Because surely if people can get that element right, it's the beginning of the journey.
Well, that's probably the most important thing that I love sharing more than anything. Every human being, regardless of age or gender or culture, has and lives by a set of priorities or values, things that are most important to least important in their life. And at any moment in their life, they have a unique set of values that are fingerprint specific. And whatever's highest on that value list, whatever's most important to them, they are spontaneously inspired from within to fulfill it. And whatever's lower on values, which become more extrinsic, they require motivation and incentives and reminders to do it. So anytime somebody sets a goal or an intention that is truly, authentically integral to their highest value and really aligned and congruent with the highest value, they maximize their potential and they wake up their natural born leader and they find that calling, that why, because that highest value is the why. The ancient Greeks called the highest value the telos, the end in mind. Napoleon Hill called it the chief aim. One of my mentors called it the primary objective and the magnificent obsession. Whatever that highest value is, the ancients knew how important it was to discover, and the study of it was called teleology, which is the study of meaning and purpose. So the most meaningful, most purposeful, most fulfilling, most inspiring thing a human being can do is access the highest value, the telos, and set sail and become captain of their ship and orchestrate their life and conduct their life in such a way that they're doing the highest priority actions to fulfill that on a daily basis and learning to delegate all lower priority things that dilute and devalue their attentions. And when they do that, they build a massive momentum towards a greatness, and they give themselves permission to do something extraordinary on the planet.
Amazing. Is there any particular steps that, I mean, obviously it's a big subject and something that, you know, I guess people could spend hours cultivating and always continually, I guess, as we develop, spending time on ourselves. But is there any particular steps that our listeners could take in line with developing a meaningful purpose and you know, with that end in mind? Is there anything that you would suggest? Yes,
every week, 43 times out of the week, I mean, I do programs pretty well every day. I do about 350 speeches a year.
Wow.
And every weekend, 43 weekends out of the year, I do a program called the Breakthrough Experience. That program is designed to do for others what Paul Bragg did for me, to access that highest value, that purpose, that mission, and to start designing your life and orchestrating your life. Because if you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it's going to fill up with low priority distractions that don't, which devalue you. So I put together in the program and also freely online. So if anybody wants to go on my website, drdemartini.com, they can do this for free. It takes about 30 minutes of their time. It's 13 value questions that I'm absolutely certain it can help. I mean, I've shared it all over the world. It's used in companies, governments. It's used everywhere. And what it is 13 questions, and I'll go through them. You ask yourself, how specifically, what is the 3 highest priority items you fill your space with? Because one of the determinants of what you value is things that are really valuable to you keep around you, and things that are not, you push away from you. So you look at what you keep most consistently around you. If you had a fire, what would you go and grab that's most important in your life? And you look at what is truly most important by looking at how you fill your space. The second value determinant is how much time in a day do you spend on things. the three things you spend the most amount of time on indicate what you value most. So in my case, my space is a computer with vast amount of information that I've composed on it for writing and teaching. My time is spent teaching. Pretty well every day, 7 days a week, I'm teaching. The third value determinant is what energizes you, because when you're doing something that's extremely valuable to you, highest on your values, you have more energy at the end of the day than when you started. And when you're doing things low in your values, you're drained of energy. And you're designed that way as a feedback mechanism to guide you back to what is important. And so you look at what are the three things that energize you most, and you always have energy for. The fourth value determinant is what you spend your money on, because you find money, spend money, and accumulate money for whatever is most valuable to you. Now, and when I was younger, in my 20s, I used to buy, on average, about 40 to 50 books a week. And so I was reading, quite extensively, and I would buy books. Today, with it online, most of my money goes into investments for the Demartini Prize and other functions I do. But whatever you spend your money on, that tells you what you value. The next one is, where are you most organized and ordered? You're organized in the highest value. You're disorganized in the lowest, because you want to give attention to the thing that's most valuable to you. The next one is where you're most disciplined, reliable, and focused, where nobody has to remind you to do things. That's an indication of what you value. The next one is, what do you visualize, think about how you want your life that shows evidence of coming true. And the next one is, what do you visualize about how you would love your life that shows evidence coming true. And the next one is, what is your internal dialogue, your internal affirmation about how you want your life that shows evidence coming true. And the next one is, what do you converse with other people about most, and what do you keep wanting to bring the conversation to most consistently when you're in a social setting, and what can you talk all night about. And the next one is, what inspires you in life, what brings tears of inspiration to your life, and what is common to the people who have inspired you most. And the next one is, what is the three most consistent, persistent goals that you're pursuing that you're showing great evidence of coming true, they're coming into reality. And the last one is, what do you want to study, read, learn, and listen to most consistently? What do you spontaneously go to at the bookstore? What do you spontaneously go to online when you go to Google to learn? If you take the top three answers for each of those 13 questions, and there'll be 39 answers, and you'll see that the same answers repeatedly show up. And based on how frequent they are, if they show up the most frequent, second most frequent, third most frequent, that tells you what you value most, second and third. And that gives you an indication of what you're committed to. And then if you start orchestrating and structuring your life around that, amazing energy will come about, amazing productivity will come about, and the more self-worth and more vision, expanded vision, because your executive center in the brain comes online when you live according to highest priorities. And this is so important if you want inspired vision, strategic planning, executing plans, and governance in life, mastery in life. So this is the key, is to identify those. And so please have people go online and let them do that. It's 30 minutes. It's private. They can store it. They can compare it. If they go back to it at another date, they can see what's there. But be objective about it. Don't write down fantasies, what you hope it will be, what you used to do. Write down what's accurate today as objectively as possible, and it'll help you set sail on what's most important.
John, I will certainly myself be getting onto the website. I mean, what a great, simple process for people to follow to establish them truths and them values. So guys, the website, just as a reminder, is www.drdemartini.com, DRDEMARTINI.com. Get over to the website. And John, how, obviously this breakthrough experience, you mentioned you talk 43 weekends a year, which is just phenomenal. Your level of contribution is almost mind-blowing and inspiring, that you have that passion and commitment to continually and persistently contribute to the masses and really creating a ripple effect of change. When, for people that may be interested in, going on your website, and your website is packed with information and programs and I think you've got interviews, articles, YouTube videos, etc. It's a really it's a great website full of information that people can really learn. But how can people connect with you live? These 43 weekends, are these all live events, or some of them online, or?
No, I speak every weekend. So I'm somewhere in the world. If they go on the events calendar on my website, it tells you where the public events are. I do a lot of private events, but the public events are there. I do the breakthrough experience. I've done it 1,115 times. I'll do the next one. I'm going to Tokyo. So I do it every week. In between those, I do my other leadership programs on the other weekends. So I'm just full on, when I almost died at 17, I was laying face down in my tent, and I was sicker than a dog. I had been unconscious for 3.5 days. When I came out of it, I thought to myself, if I make it through this ordeal, I want to do something more with my life than this. And I guess after that, each day was pretty precious. So I basically said, all right, let's go to work.
That's brilliant.
I figured, I can rest at the afterlife kind of thing. But I figured, let's get on with it. And so I'm a man on a mission. And I figure that, I think when you find something you can't wait to get up in the morning and do, my observation is that people can't wait to get it. And if you're an entrepreneur out there, you want to make sure that you do something as Buffett says, you want to tap dance to work. You want to get up and do something you absolutely love. I was last night having a dinner with Greg Secker, and we were having a conversation about he's working on a new book about doing what you love and loving what you do. And I think that's crucial. And if you're not doing something you love, you have a quiet life of desperation. And then you want to make sure that whatever that is you do, you want to make sure that it fills the highest values of other people. And the more universal that pursuit is, and the greater the number of people you can serve, because a person that really has a desire to serve vast numbers of people is going to be vastly rewarded. And there's no limit on the power of service, and there's therefore no limit on the rewards we can have in life. And I think we're here to do as much altruistic service as possible and then receive as much narcissistic rewards as possible and take them all equally to the greatest limit of a human possibility for our life. So we can look back at our last days of our life and say, did you do everything you could with everything you were given? And you said, absolutely, I did it. Because I believe that when you find something you're inspired by, you don't need motivation on the outside. No one's ever to motivate me in 45 years to do what I'm doing. I don't need motivation. I'm inspired from within. That's what wakes up natural born leaders. And we all have it ready to emerge once we become congruent and authentic to what's truly most important to us.
Yeah, I have the endorphins running around my bloodstream listening to you, John. I'm really completely agree with you. And it reminds me of going back to my entry into the entrepreneurial world when I returned from traveling about age 20, 21, and I stumbled across the late great Zig Ziglar, and his famous quote always sticks with me: is help enough people get what they want, and in turn you'll have what you want. And I think it's that focus on contribution first. And making money is not a bad idea, but in my opinion, it shouldn't really be the first point of focus. I think, if you can, as you be in line with your values and look to contribute to something greater than yourself, like your mission is clearly greater than yourself. And it's why, in my humble opinion, you're excelling and you're just excellent in your field. And it's just really inspiring to see somebody and listen to someone that has that passion from within.
Well, I was 20 when I listened to Zig Ziglar, and he said that statement. And it was very inspiring to hear him. He was out of Dallas, Texas. I was in Houston. He came to Houston and spoke there. And so there's a guy I had named Ed Tullison. Now, Ed Tullison, I can't even find the guy on the internet, which is surprising. He had such an impact back in the 70s. But this guy traveled the world, lived in the penthouses of the top hotels, and had thousands of people attend his evening programs. And then you bought a $1,000 set of 100 audio cassettes, and each were $10. But for $1,000, you buy these 100 cassettes. It was all about living an inspired entrepreneurial life. Wow. So I raised the money and got my $1,000 and I bought that set. And then anywhere in the world where he was, whatever it is, after the next day or the next few days, he'd be in that city. You can hang out with him and just ask him questions. And so he said to me, never live where you can't see the farthest horizon. And I thought, wow, that's cool. So that's why I put my homes on the 63rd floor and in Australia and the 62nd floor in New York, the 52nd floor in Houston. I live on a ship that's out at sea, so there's no boundaries, atop of a mountain. All my homes have been where you can't have any limits. You can see the farthest horizon. Nothing's in the way of that. And I really believe that our vision is constrained by the subordination and constructions of people on the outside that we subordinate to. And we're not here to live in the shadows of anyone. We're here to stand on the shoulders of giants. and to recognize that whatever we see in others that we admire, we have within us, although it may be in a different form, according to our own set of values. So we're not here to envy them, but we're here to awaken by seeing their greatness. It's only because we're too humble to admit what we see in them inside us. But once we awaken it and see that it's not missing in us, nothing's missing in us, we give ourselves permission to stand on their shoulders and thank them for catalyzing the realization that we are not missing it and we have the capacity to do something extraordinary. And I'm very much into helping people wake that up and help them discover their own magnificence, because they don't need self-improvement. They might need self-awareness, that's all.
Fabulous. Well, I'm 100% sure that the listeners are going to be as captivated as I am and listening to you today. You talked about your passion to study the laws of the universe, and that passion to study that still clearly resides within you, to study, to continue to develop and grow as we always do. How come, with the law of the universe and the law of attraction, particularly interested in learning a little bit more of your involvement within The Secret? How did that come about? And what can you share on the law of attraction?
I had been teaching, many years, because that was just about 11 or 12 years ago. Yep. I guess because I had been out and about speaking, I was doing probably about 320 to 350 speeches a year at the time. And I got a call from Rhonda Byrne. And Rhonda Byrne is the producer of that. And she invited me to want to participate. And I told her yes. And I said, thank you. She said, we see that you're out, in the personal development industry, and you're busy and you're doing things, and you have an outreach and you have many books out, and we'd like to have you participate. And I said, well, I'd love to. It'd be fantastic. What she described was pretty inspiring. The original Secret is not what anybody saw. The original Secret was a 2-hour primetime television special that was going to go launch around the world. Oh. And but what happens, the Commonwealth Games bought out the time and messed up their schedule, and so they went on to a Vividis DVD set instead and went out to the world, which actually was a greater outcome. Yep. But it would have been limited otherwise. But I was involved in that, and then it would just so happen that I was involved in a transformational leadership council with Jack Canfield, and so 33 of the people in the movie happened to be in Aspen, Colorado at a conference that we were putting on to help everybody share with everybody else the greatest ideas that's been helping people in their transformation of people's lives. And we were having a meeting, and so she came in and filmed 3 solid days from early in the morning to early in the morning and captured all the footage of that. And that made it more efficient. So she flew over from Melbourne, Australia over to Aspen to get at least 70% of all the footage for the film right there in 3 days. Wow. Because everybody was there. It was very efficient. Luckily, it just happened to be where it was one of those meant to be situations. And that was the role of it. I was blessed to be part of that. Now, the version that everybody saw was the third version, and that's the one that kind of went viral. And but the first version was completely different. I was the advertisement in Melbourne on TV, where I was speed reading an ancient text, trying to find the laws of the universe, The Secret. Mm-hmm. That was the advertisement, and it was a 2 to 2 hour primetime TV special. But they changed it and diluted it down and watered down some of the content, so it was a little bit more mass media, social media worthy.
Wow, brilliant. So on your personal development journey, sort of going back to the time when you were, I guess, awakened, face down in your tent, and that lady obviously got you to that health shop, and since then, when you've made that decision to educate yourself and study and become a teacher globally. You mentioned obviously Zig Ziglar having an influence on you when you were 20. You've mentioned obviously this 100 radio cassette program that you found a way to invest that $1,000. What was the actual first program? What was the first book? Because I was just thinking for a moment when you mentioned that $1,000 in Zig Ziglar, I thought, I wonder who was my catalyst for change. And I remember I found a leaflet and I was just captivated by it, and it was actually Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within, and that's really what set me on my personal development journey, to really believe in what was inside. Was there anything particular from memory that set you on your way, John?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's a whole chain of situations. When I was 14 years old, I took off from Houston, Texas to hitchhike to California.
Yep.
Halfway there, I was walking through downtown El Paso, Texas. And I had a headband on and a Hawaiian shirt and some sandals, and I was with a surfboard, and kind of looked like a hippie. And I got confronted down in the sidewalk downtown with 3 cowboys, because cowboys and surfers didn't get along. And they were going to harass me, wanted to beat me up. And I didn't know what to do, so I couldn't outrun them. I couldn't go in the shop. I couldn't go in the street. And so I didn't know what to do. So I just started growling and barking like a wild animal at them, which I don't know where it came from, but it just surfaced. And it worked. They backed away. They thought, this guy's probably on drugs or something. And it was funny, when I went past them, an old guy on the street came up to me, put his arm on my shoulder and said, Sonny, that was the funniest dang thing I've ever seen. You took care of them cowpokes like a pro. Can I buy you a cup of coffee, young man? And I said, well, no, sir, I don't drink coffee. Can I buy you a Coca-Cola? And I said, yes, sir. So we went to a malt shop and got a Coca-Cola, this old man. Now, this old man is probably 62. I'm 63 now, but I don't feel old. But anyway, he then talked to me and he says, are you going to California? I said, yeah. He says, you a runaway? I said, no, not really. My parents know where I'm doing. You know, that it's an authorized thing. And he said, well, you threw the Coke? I said, yeah. He said, then follow me. I have something to teach you. So I followed this old man 2 blocks, another 2 blocks, up the steps of the downtown El Paso library. He took me to a library. We went to the information booth and asked the lady there to keep an eye on my goods, my surfboard and my duffel bag. We went in the library, down some steps, up some steps, and sat down at a table. He went off to the bookshelves and came back with 2 big books. And he sat me down. He looked directly at me, catty corner on the corner of the table. And he looked at me and he said, young man, there's 2 things I want to teach you, boy. But you got to promise me you'll never forget them. I said, yes, sir. He said, number 1, young man, is never judge a book by its cover. It will fool you. He said, I'll bet you think I'm some old guy on the street, some old bum on the street. And he looked like it. He looked like just some old guy. He said, but young man, I'm one of the wealthiest men in the world. I have everything that money can buy. I've got planes, I've got companies, I've got yachts, I've got homes. I've got everything that anybody could ever buy. He says, so don't ever judge a book by its cover. It'll fool you. And then he said he took my right hand and he stuck them on top of the 2 books, and it was Plato and Aristotle. And he said, young man, you learn how to read. You learn how to read, boy. He says, because there's only 2 things you can never take away from your life, and that is your love and your wisdom. So you gain the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom. Philosophia, young man. And you never forget that. You got to promise me. He looked me straight in the eye. He said, you promise, boy? And I said, yes, sir. Well, I never forgot that. I wear cufflinks right now that have the cufflinks embossed love and wisdom. And that was a mentor to me. Wow. He turned out to be Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes was in El Paso, Texas, dealing with El Paso natural gas to build a brewery. I just happened to run into Howard Hughes on the street, and he basically gave me an inspiration to do love and wisdom. So that was a mentor without even realizing it was a mentor initially.
I love that. I've never heard it put across in that way. Love of wisdom, wisdom of love. Philosophy. It's that's an amazing experience. Brilliant. Yeah.
So that was a mentor. Then I met Paul Bragg.
Okay.
And I met many people. I've been blessed to meet amazing people over my journey. I mean, just amazing. The list is in the thousands of just amazing people that do extraordinary things. And I believe that if you're on a mission to go do something amazing, the universe brings you amazing people in your life to catalyze all the next steps. You're always at the right place at the right time to meet the right people to make the right deal. And you're here to synchronize and be at the right place to meet the right people. That's it. And that's Tremendous Jones, one of the mentors I had too. He said, the people you meet and the books that you read will determine where you are yesterday versus tomorrow. And then you got to fill your mind with the greatest ideas you can, and don't give yourself time to fill it with anything other than that which inspires you.
Wow. Yeah, I think the excellence that's been shared with you has obviously propelled you on your own mission of passion and excellence and influence in the world, and it's really, really great to see. Do you think there's something that with your studies of human behaviour that conflicts people in, preventing themselves to succeed, or even those that then empower themselves to succeed? Is that related to their values? Is there anything, that why do people stop themselves? Is it a fear?
It's a very simple thing. I outlined it very clearly in the breakthrough experience, and people just go, their mouths are just sitting open. Anytime you meet somebody that you think, in your perception, that they are more intelligent than you, more successful than you, more wealthy than you, have a more stable or more beautiful relationship than you, more socially influenced than you, more physically fit or attractive or healthier than you, or more spiritually aware than you. Anytime you compare yourself to them, instead of comparing your daily actions to your own highest values, and you minimize yourself and exaggerate them because you assume they have something that you're too humble to admit you have, you will inject their values into your life, and you'll try to envy them and imitate them and inject their values. And the second you try to live by somebody else's values, they won't be intrinsic, and you'll need motivation. And you're designed in your physiology and psychology to self-depreciate whenever you're living by lower values and not your own highest. And so you end up having this fantasies of trying to live in their values instead of the authenticities of living in your own highest values. And those fantasies create phobias and fears because you can't persist on it. You can't sustain living other people's values. You can only sustain living your own. And you want to be, nobody's dedicated to anything other than what they value most. And so if you try to be doing something else, you'll dilute it. And many people cloud the clarity of their own called mission inside because they keep surrounding themselves with people that they subordinate to. That's why living in the shadows of others is not the secret. And living with a herd instinct and being part of the sheep instead of the shepherd is not going to get you to greatness. You have to be willing to walk the road, an unborrowed visionary, a trailblazer, as Emerson says, and give yourself permission to be authentic. Even if you get ridiculed because of tradition and convention and violently opposed because you're unique and you're basic original thinker. But on the other end of it, once you build momentum, you change and catalyze transformation in the world. And this is what leaves the mark. And then you create a change in culture because everybody wants to make a difference, but they can't make a difference diluting themselves by the injected values of others. They can only make a difference by being authentic in their own unique path and their own highest values.
So really the message is authenticity, and I guess we can be clouded by that social conditioning and that environmental influence, whereas connecting with, getting over to your 13 value questions, going back there, and people spending a bit of time on themselves to get true to what's in line with their core values and what's going to empower them from the inside out rather than the outside in.
That's it. If you identify, that everybody can identify with this. If you fill your day with high priority actions that truly inspire you, truly specific actions that get done that day so you can build confidence and momentum by accomplishing little incremental steps. Baby steps make big dreams, piggy banks become biggie banks, little actions that do something build momentum like a domino. And if you stick to the highest priority actions, your day doesn't fill up with low priority distractions. It's easier to say no to people that try to inject or unjuct you and try to distract you. You say, thank you, but no thank you. I'm on a mission. And you can stay focused and you will build a tremendous amount of energy. Your energy is infinite once you recognize that source. And your vitality in life is directly proportional to the vividness of the vision. And the second you're congruent with the highest value, your executive center reveals to you literally an inspired vision, and you can see your pathway and you would take action on it. You can see the steps. And this is the lucidity that occurs in a person who's congruent.
Fantastic. So grateful for your time today. John, I have one more question I'd like to ask you. It's something that I've stumbled across, and for me personally would like a little bit of clarity. In the world we live in today, I've kind of have this almost fear of where people are, segregated into a certain box, and, people are told they have depression or they have anxiety. Somebody recently told me that they'd been to the doctors and had been, prescribed, X, Y, and Z antidepressants. And my beliefs are in a complete opposite domain to that. I really do believe in people and believe in our ability to, focus and be connected to our authenticity. And it's a shame where, in my opinion, westernized medical intervention seems to be almost disrupting the world. And I stumbled across something about the Demartini Method, and it talks about how that can resolve emotions and challenges. Can you briefly tell us a little bit about what that method actually is?
Yeah, it's extremely powerful. I've been working on it since I was 18. Depression I define as a comparison of your current reality to a fantasy and an unrealistic expectation or delusion that you're holding on to and addicted to. In other words, the way life is the way life is. And if you hold on to a fantasy of how it's supposed to be or how it should be or how you want it to be, instead of honoring what it is, you're not going to appreciate it. And you won't see things on the way, you'll see things in the way constantly. So what I do is in the Demartini Method, it's more than I can say in 5 minutes because it's a lot of different questions involved. Mm-hmm. But it starts off, let's say somebody does something that you feel resentful to. So what you do, and the first step you do, is identify what specific trait, action, or inaction is this person displaying or demonstrating that you perceive in a way that you have resentment to them, that you most resent. And you identify that, and you break it down to an action or an inaction, not a label, not a feeling, but an exact action that they take. Then you identify where and when do you display and demonstrate this trait, action, inaction, and who do you do it to, and who sees you doing it. And you go and repeat that until you can own the trait 100% quantitatively and qualitatively. And I've done that on 80,000 people in the breakthrough and probably another 80,000 people in one-on-ones and I got 4,000 facilitators doing that on another 500,000 people. We've demonstrated that there's no trait you'll ever see in another person you don't have. You have everything inside you. Nothing's missing in you, but you may not be honoring it. You may be too proud or too humble to admit you have it. So first, you got to own it. You got to own your hero and your villain if you want to master your life. And then what you do is you go in and find out, so, okay, it's never what happens to you. It's your perception of it because you have control of your perceptions, decisions, and actions. That's the only thing you have control over. Mm-hmm. So how specifically is this them displaying this? How is it serving you? So you go to the moment when and where they displayed the trait and ask how specifically is, while they're displaying that trait, serving you? How's it helping you? How's it helping you achieve? How's it helping you get what you want in life? How's it helping you fulfill your highest value? And you don't stop answering that until you can turn it into something to be thankful for. Because it's never what happens to you, it's your perception of it. Once you do that, then you go and look at where you've done it and you find out how it served the people you've done it to. Then you go and find out where that person does the opposite so you don't label them and distort with subjective biases, the labels on them. Then you go find out at the exact moment they did it, who is doing the opposite in your life, because there's always a pair of opposites, because our perceptions are always contrastive. And then if you ask yourself the next question, if they had done the opposite, the way you hoped they'd have been, the fantasy, what would have been the drawback to crack the fantasy you're comparing them to? By the time you finish those 7 questions, you're going to be appreciating this person instead of being resentful to this person. Mm-hmm. There's not one emotion that I've seen people have in the breakthrough experience that we haven't been able to turn and return to thank you, I love you. And everybody wants to be loved and appreciated for who they are. And if you had only 24 hours to live, you'd basically say, thank you, I love you to the people who contribute to your life. Well, everybody contributes to your life, no matter who they are. So wisdom is knowing how to ask the right questions, because as you know, the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions you have. So the Demartini Method is a series of about 100 questions that can transform any perception into thank you. Wow. And it liberates people from emotional baggage and bondage and gives them permission to go after what inspires them most.
Well, John, I'm very grateful yet again. Thank you very much for your time today. I'm 100% confident this is one of the greatest shows we've done, and our listeners are really going to find some inspiration and some real, catalyst for change. Guys, get over to Dr. Joh Demartini's website. As a reminder, www.drdemartini.com. There's an abundance of contribution on there. Get over to the events calendar, have a look at the public events, see where you can, make time, make an effort to get and see John live. And from my own personal pride and satisfaction, thanks, John, for your time. And I wish you a fantastic day and continued success in all you do. Thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you for this, and appreciate you helping me help other people. I appreciate it. Thank you for your contribution and all the dedication you have to making that difference.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's show, we would appreciate it if you would like. Most people share through social media, then subscribe, rate and provide a review over at iTunes and SoundCloud. That's all for today. Thank you for joining us. The Passion to Succeed show is brought to you by PassionToSucceed.com. Get over to the website, subscribe, and join the community of passionate people.